Hello and welcome into this week's edition of The Pole Position right here on Racing News Now. As always, I'm your host Garth Allen. Thank you once again for joining me tonight. If this is your first time catching a Racing News Now video, first off, welcome. This is a channel where we discuss lots of motorsports, namely NASCAR, ARCA, IndyCar, and F1. We do plan on broadening that scope eventually, but for now, those are the series that we cover. So on tonight's episode of The Pole Position, we have 4 races to recap from this past weekend. The 2 NASCAR races from Kansas, Trucks from Friday night, and Cup from Saturday night. The IndyCar Grand Prix from Indianapolis on Saturday on the road course, and the Formula One Spanish Grand Prix from yesterday. So let's get right into it. We'll start with the NASCAR stuff and get through that very quickly, as this is the new leaner, meaner, cleaner, whatever you want to call it, version of Pole Position, where we get down, get through things really quickly, since we're doing the more in-depth race recaps and race previews as their own thing. So, very quickly here for the Camping World Truck Series is the 18th annual 37 Kind Days 250. Friday night from the Kansas Speedway, 167 laps around this 1.5 mile D-shaped oval. Noah Gragson dominated on the night, won both stages and the race, led a race-high 128 of the 167 laps. He was the class of the field. Nobody was touching him, especially at the end with the pit strategy. He had 4 tires versus 2. He was untouchable. Teammate and owner Kyle Busch comes home in the second position. A very strong run for Stuart Friesen in third, John Hunter Nemechek in fourth, and Johnny Sauter rounds out the top 5. Rest of your top 10 was Matt Craft and Cody Coughlin with a strong run, Grant Enfinger, Brandon Jones in his first start in the trucks of the season for Kyle Busch Motorsports, and Justin Haley rounds out the top 10. First truck, 1 lap down. This was Noah Gragson's second career Truck Series victory. If you remember, he won last season in the fall at Martinsville. So this is the second career win for him. So kudos to Noah Gragson for that. Now we will move on to the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. They were in action Saturday night, also from the Kansas Speedway for the 8th annual KC Masterpiece 400, 267 laps, again around the 1.5 mile D-shaped oval. And again, one dominating car. And there's really 3 dominant cars throughout the night. Two of those 3 ended up taking themselves out late. We're not going to really get into that. If you want to know more about that, definitely check out the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series Rewind show. If you go to the channel, it should be the video that was up immediately before this one. Went up yesterday, so it was the last video to go up. Kevin Harvick, though, wins the KC Masterpiece 400, his 5th win of the season, 42nd career victory for the driver of the 4 car, the Busch Light Ford. Didn't win a stage on the night, second in both stages, as Ryan Blaney won the first stage, Kyle Larson won the second stage. Harvick did lead 79 laps on the night, though. Martin Truex Jr. came home a close second, led all the way up to the white flag, where he got passed by Kevin Harvick for the win in that final run. Joey Logano in third. Kyle Larson possibly had the fastest car on the night. He was definitely one of the 3 fastest. Caught up in an incident with Ryan Blaney late. 101 laps led on the night for Kyle Larson in fourth, and Denny Hamlin rounds out the top 5. Rest of your top 10, Paul Menard in 6th, Eric Jones, Kurt Busch, Eric Almirola, and Kyle Busch rounding out the top 10. Of note, down through the field, Jimmy Johnson had a very off night. He comes home in the 19th position. Matt Kenseth's triumphant return, not so triumphant, 36th on the night. We have more on his struggles in the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series Rewind show, so go give that a watch if you haven't already. And Ryan Blaney, the third of the strongest cars on the night, comes home in 37th. We have more on his incident as well in the Rewind show. 37th for Blaney, 54 laps led on the night. So that was the KC Masterpiece 400 from Saturday night. Now we will go to the other race from Saturday, ran during the day. The IndyCar Grand Prix from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. Round 5 of the 2018 Verizon IndyCar Series. And this was a pretty good race. To be honest, I would say this might have been the best Grand Prix on the Indianapolis road course since its inception. This was the 5th running of it, and I think this was probably the best one, although Will Power did run away with the race at the end. But for the most part, the race was really good. So as we said, Will Power wins. Scott Dixon comes out of nowhere to finish second in this one. Had no speed whatsoever all weekend. And then somehow finds something in the final warm-up Saturday morning. Still really didn't do much throughout the race. Never really heard anything out of Scott Dixon. Then all of a sudden late in the race, he's second. Don't know where he came from. Don't know what happened. But somehow Scott Dixon finds a way, as he always seems to do somehow, to come home in the second position. Robert Wickens had a very strong run. Thought for a long time he might possibly get that first career win in the IndyCar Grand Prix. Did not end up happening. Came home in the 3rd position. Sebastian Bourdais with a strong run. Never really saw him as a contender to really win, but he was definitely up there all day long. Alexander Rossi rounds out the top 5 and 5th. Rest of your top 10, Helio Castroneves in his return for a 2-race slate. He's running both races in the month of May. This was the first of the 2. Comes home with a very strong, respectable run in 6th. James Hinchcliffe in 7th. Simon Pagenaud, Graham Rahal, and Takuma Sato rounds out the top 10. So that is your top 10 from the IndyCar Grand Prix. Now finally we will look at the last race from the weekend. That was the 2018 Spanish Grand Prix from Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. I know my Spanish is not the greatest Spanish accent, nor my Spanish period, but that's neither here nor there. So Lewis Hamilton, as we correctly predicted on the final R&N Talks last week, did end up picking up the victory in this one. It does seem, as I kind of predicted last week, that the win in Baku has kind of kicked that Mercedes team into high gear. And, we may, from here on out, we may see a repeat of last season out of Lewis Hamilton, because this was a typical Lewis Hamilton win. Stunk up the show. There wasn't really much happening, and Lewis Hamilton has even admitted to that. He usually only wins boring races because he just gets out, leads, and is gone. Nothing happens. Led 58 of the 66 laps. Only time he ever lost the lead was during pit stops, and all 8 of those laps that Hamilton didn't lead were led by Max Verstappen. Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes teammate Valtteri Bottas comes home in the 2nd position. Also on the podium in 3rd, Max Verstappen. Sebastian Vettel comes home in the 4th position, and Daniel Ricciardo rounds out the top 5. Those were the only cars remaining on the lead lap at the end of this race. I'm sure we probably would have had 6 remaining on the lead lap had Kimi Räikkönen made it to the end of the race. Unfortunately, he had mechanical issues. Actually, 6 cars were out of this race at the end, those being Stoffel Van Dorn, Esteban Ocon, Kimi Räikkönen, those 3 all having mechanical problems of one sort or another. And then caught up in a lap 1 accident were Romain Grosjean, Pierre Gasly, and Nico Hülkenberg, all of them not making it through turn 4 on lap 1. So that's your recap of the 2018 Spanish Grand Prix, and I believe that will do it for us on tonight's edition of Pole Position. Like I told you, meaner, leaner, cleaner, whatever you want to call it. It's a lot more abbreviated than it used to be, but that's because we're doing these preview shows and rewind shows now, going more in depth on those. Pole Position from here on out is just going to be quick results and catch you up on things that you may have missed. If you want to see things more in depth, you got to watch the preview shows and the rewind shows that go up. Preview shows go up a little bit before the races, the day of the race, and then the rewind shows generally go up the next day or so. So that should do it for us tonight on the pole position. Thank you as always for joining me. If you haven't done it already, hit that subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss a thing from racing news. Now, hit that big thumbs up button if you like the video. It is much appreciated when you do. And don't forget to support us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/racingnewsnow. Like I say every time, it is not required by any means. You can enjoy these videos for free all you want, and I don't mind. It's just really appreciated when you do, because it helps us continue to grow and give you better and better quality content into the future. So with that, this has been the pole position, where you always start on the front row. I'm Garth Allen for Racing News Now.